Attention, you're listening to the Todd Huff Radio Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk radio. Be advised that the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. Here's your conservative, but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Well, that is right, my friends. As I've told you earlier this week, this is a shortened week, as you well know, with the holiday. We won't be here tomorrow. It's a good time to catch up on archives of this program. Go to the website, subscribe to the podcast, whatever, my friends. We will be back on Monday, and I hope you have a great Independence Day weekend. I want to talk a little bit about that. I want to talk about a couple of things here in particular today. You might have remembered, in fact, I'm gonna pull this up. I did a Todd Talk earlier in the week where I mentioned something about an app from an app from a leftist lunatic that informed people as to where ICE was operating in an effort to help people avoid being, captured by ICE or having encounters with ICE or whatever. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the update of this bill. We've got, the bill has gone back. As you know, the one big, beautiful bill has gone back to the House of Representatives. Hakeem Jeffries is channeling his inner Spartacus, his inner Dramacrat, which of course he doesn't have to go very far for that. He's using some privilege, some House rule to basically speak as long as he can in order to delay the vote on the one big, beautiful bill. I saw a clip of a congresswoman who was crying with the passage of the bill from the Senate. I mean, it's just too much, my friends, for me to take here. That's the direction we are headed today. I want to talk also a little bit about the meaning of the 4th of July, the holiday. I talked a little bit about that yesterday. I think I did. I was asking Oz before the show because, listen, there's other conversations and things that I write, and I said, did I say this in the show? Is this something that I just talked about on the Todd Talk? But we do want to talk a little bit about the importance of this day, tomorrow, July 4th, Independence Day. So that's where we're headed in today's program. Thank you for being here and joining us along this journey. By the way, my friends, program is brought to you by a great day for this company, Red, White, and Brand. Red, White, and Brand is a company, a division actually of this program, that is here to help you put your logo on almost anything. So if you're a business owner, if you're someone in marketing, if you're someone in human resources, if you're someone else that just manages branded items, things like trade show booths, things like display banners, things like company apparel, things like promotional products. Maybe you have a fair coming up, a job fair coming up. Anything that has your logo on it, my friends, Red, White, and Brand is here to help. redwhiteandbrand.com. You got to spell that out. You cannot use an ampersand, an and sign in a website. You got to spell out redwhiteandbrand.com. You can take a look at some of the products. The better way, candidly, is to reach out to the folks, to the team at redwhiteandbrand.com. But whatever you decide to do, promo code Todd's going to save you 10% on your first order. And if you purchase online, you're going to get free shipping as well. redwhiteandbrand.com, your logo on almost anything. All right. Where do I want to start today? I want to start, I guess, with the bill, the one big beautiful bill leaving the Senate and making its way into the House of Representatives. Hakeem Jeffries has taken to the microphone in the House chamber. This is at CNN.com. This started, by the way, early this morning. I think it was at 4:55 a.m. Hakeem Jeffries took to the microphone. Here's what CNN's summary says. So again, to update you as to what's happening here, the House passed their version of the One Big Beautiful Bill, 215 to 214, with one vote abstaining, one person, one representative abstaining. It was then sent to the United States Senate, where they made some changes. That vote was a tie, 50-50, and J.D. Vance broke the tie, cast the vote to send the bill back to the House. So the Senate passed their version of the House. By the way, anytime I think about the Vice President of the United States casting a tie-breaking vote in the Senate, I'm reminded, now you have to go way back in the history books, well, depending on how old you are, how mature, you might be. You have to go way back in the history books to find, to recall a campaign back in 2008. John McCain was the Republican nominee for president. He was running against the Democrat. Of course, the Democrat was Barack Obama. And John McCain had a running mate who was the governor of Alaska named Sarah Palin. You, of course, know who Sarah Palin is. And Sarah Palin kind of stormed onto the scene. And John McCain was not, he was, I mean, people appreciated his service. I don't mean it, like that. But people were not, conservatives were not inspired by a John McCain presidency, just like we were not inspired by Bob Dole in 1996, just like we were, well, I was too young, but I don't think overly impressed with George H.W. Bush in 1988. Who was 92? Why am I drawing a blank? Oh, it was Bush. Yeah, still Bush Sr. against Clinton. He just beat him in his second term. And, of course, Mitt Romney and John McCain. These were not people that inspired conservatives. Now, Bush W. at the time was more well-received, but, of course, he was in the era of some of those other nominees that I told you about. But what made 2008 worth getting a little bit excited about was more Sarah Palin for the conservative than John McCain. So, Sarah Palin was asked, I believe she was being interviewed by, I want to say Jane Pauley. That's not Katie Couric. It really dates me. Katie Couric was asking Sarah Palin some questions. Now, this was under the auspices or the make-believe, little narrative that the media wanted to help us get to know Sarah Palin, right? Of course, that's nothing further from the truth. The media wanted to malign and tear down and misrepresent Sarah Palin. They didn't want us to really see who she was, what she believed, that sort of thing. They wanted us to think that she was an idiot, and that was the intention of this interview. She was asked about what magazines and so forth that she read at the time, and she was also asked about the role of the vice president. And she made a comment that the vice president was the president of the Senate. I remember the way she was mocked over this answer, as though it was a wrong answer. As though, again, this is what the media did. They were slightly more effective at it then, I believe, than they are today. Although I thought that they would lose their effectiveness because I thought having access to more information through the internet, the interwebs, would help people to see things a little more objectively and not be, just blindsided or, I guess, under the hypnosis of the people in the media, the 7 pillars of propaganda, one of the 7 pillars, the media misleading them through these make-believe journalists. But yet they did, and Sarah Palin was branded as some buffoon, some idiot, some, just joke of a candidate. And that's how they handled Sarah Palin. And, she fought back and she did well in her debate, the vice presidential debate. You can't put lipstick on a pig. That's where she pulled that out. Can I call you Joe? Oh, that was a good one as well when she debated Joe Biden back in 2008. Anyway, but I'm reminded of that because they mocked her, but this is quite an important role. Now, the president of the Senate, who is the vice president, does not cast a vote unless there is a tie, and that's what happened. There was a tie. J.D. Vance cast the tie-breaking vote. So now this bill goes back to the Senate, which kind of sets the stage for what we're dealing with today, this morning. CNN.com says this: the House chamber is in a lull after lawmakers worked through the night to advance President Donald Trump's policy agenda bill, to a final vote in line with his self-imposed July 4th deadline. Now, the only thing I can imagine here is that this charade, of course, they're Dramocrats, number one. Dramocrats being Dramocrats, this is what they're going to do. But the only thing I can imagine is they just don't want this bill to be passed by Trump's self-imposed deadline. I don't know what they get out of that. They're not going to, if this is derailed, it's going to be because of the contents of the bill. It's not going to be because of these shenanigans. But nonetheless, this is how they're behaving. Remember, we're talking about this could not be any closer. A tie vote in the Senate with the tie-breaking vote being cast by Vance, and a one-vote victory in the House of Representatives. So now it goes back to the House because the Senate changed it, and you know that a bill must pass. It must pass in identical form, both the House and the Senate, and then it goes to the president to be signed into law or to be vetoed. Of course, the president will sign this into law if it makes its way to his desk. So this all started happening last night, right? So Hakeem Jeffries has now channeled his inner Spartacus, his inner Cory Booker, and is doing the House's version of a filibuster. Again, depending upon when you listen to my words, that may have already ended, but nonetheless, this is what it says. Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has been speaking on the floor for more than 4 hours. This was as of the time this was written, which was even a couple of hours ago. During his, quote, magic minute, an unlimited period of speaking time allotted to party leaders. I got to be honest, I haven't heard of this particular House rule, but nonetheless, that's what Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader, is doing. So, the New York Democrat has been speaking from a relatively full binder, sharing stories from Americans who will be impacted by Medicaid changes and other cuts in Trump's mega bill. Pause. Republicans say you can read all those that you want. The changes are coming from waste, fraud, and abuse. And unless the people in your magic binder, Hakeem Jeffries, are people who are violating the law, they're not going to be impacted by this legislation. The New York Democrat, CNN writes, has been speaking, I read that line already. Jeffries is speaking slowly, taking long pauses between words and phrases. Wow, what a hero. What an American. He's taking long pauses between words and between phrases. Oh, I'm inspired. Just reading this inspires me. Dozens of House members are on the floor, with some circulating in and out. There are more Democrats than Republicans, but the chamber is nowhere near full. That's okay. It's not for the consumption of the people in the House. It's for the consumption of the American public. It's for political consumption. It's to raise money amongst the radical wing of the Democrat Party. It's being done to show them that they're fighting this tyrannical regime, doing everything in their power to stop Trump and to prevent him from becoming a full-fledged dictator through the passage of this bill, destroying our democracy, probably killing people along the way. That's what this is all about. This is a shenanigan. This is a dog and pony show. It's ultimately not going to do anything. Again, if anything impacts the votes on this bill, it's going to be how individual members of Congress choose to view this bill. Not a single Democrat is going to vote for this, and there will likely be a couple of Republican defectors on this bill, as there were the first time. But, we only need one more to defect, and this bill will not pass, at least in its current form. So that's where we are. Jeffries is up there virtue signaling, channeling his inner Spartacus, and making a scene from the podium. Again, depending upon when you listen to this program, that may or may not still be going on. We will see. Time will tell. Friends, let's talk about something that is important. This bill, of course, is important. I've shared my thoughts. I summarized it yesterday. I shared a little bit about my thoughts on the bill. I certainly sympathize with the concerns about the CBO score. I also think that the growth from the economy is going to be more of an impact. It's going to have more of a positive impact than people are giving this credit for. And I don't believe the numbers are accurate regarding the debt that's added to our deficit. I do still think that the numbers are going to show the deficit will have will grow under this legislation, but not to the numbers that they're currently reporting at the CBO. But so it's important. Money is an important thing. We've acted in this country like it isn't for a long time. But your money is important as well. You've worked hard for your money, but is your money working hard for what you believe in? At 4-8 Financial, they specialize in biblically responsible investing. That means they screen out companies that do not align with your faith and your values. And they'll help you create a plan that fits your goals and your purpose. And here's perhaps the best part. You can find out right now. They'll help show you how your current investments stack up against your values. It's easy to do. All you have to do is go to 48financial.com/Todd to find out where your current investments line up with your values. That's 48financial.com/Todd. 48 Financial, helping you align your money with your mission. All right. In this weird part of the program now, I got a few minutes left before we get to the next segment, so I got to be selective here as to what we talk about. And boy, I think I've got just the thing to discuss. So you may remember on one day earlier this week. In fact, I'm going to see if I can find this thing. One day earlier this week, I did a Todd Talk. And the Todd Talk was about there it is. It was on July 2nd. So 2 days ago, my friends, 2 days ago, I did a Todd Talk, and I'm gonna play it on here. I'm gonna play the Todd Talk because I think it's important to do this and to discuss this. Bear with me here really quickly as I get this queued up. It's taking me to other places left and right. All right, hold on here. It took me to the wrong place. So on Tuesday, July 2nd, that's when... Okay, it's playing in my ears, but not in your ears yet. Hold on here. Let me fix this. Here we go. This is a Todd Talk where I talk about an app.
My friends, there's a new app out there helping people avoid immigration and customs enforcement, or ICE, by anonymously tracking their activity.
Okay.
The developer says he doesn't want anyone interfering with ICE's work, just giving folks a heads up so they can steer clear. And the left, they're applauding this like it's some kind of moral breakthrough.
Certainly.
But here's the thing. ICE is just enforcing federal law passed by Congress, signed by the president.
That's right.
And once upon a time, even supported by Democrats.
That's true.
Now the left seems to believe they're moral superstars for helping people break the law. This is what happens when your worldview stands on nothing. You'll fall for anything. Wouldn't it be an absolute shame if ordinary Americans started flooding this app with bogus tips?
I said, wouldn't it be an absolute shame if average Americans started flooding this app
customs enforcement or
with
ICE
bogus tips
anonymously?
And I was just kind of having a little bit of fun with it, but apparently, my friends, that's exactly what happened. People have taken the advice here. What can I say of yours truly? Because they have now, as I go to the story in the stack of stuff, they have now started doing that very thing. People are using, here it is, ICE Block app getting hijacked by pro-ICE activists. This is what is this? Hotair.com. CNN rightly took a lot of flack for seemingly promoting the crowdsourcing app called ICE Block, with which anti-ICE, pro-illegals activists warned illegal aliens about the location of ICE enforcement officers. So the way that I understand that it works is if you report it, if you download the app and you report it, you then it sends a notification to people in the system that's who's within 5 miles. I think it's 5 miles of where ICE is reported to be operating. And so the idea is to say, look, if you're on this app, you're either someone who is, what do I want to say? You're someone who is here illegally trying to avoid ICE, or you are someone who's a supporter of people who are here illegally. You're trying to interfere with ICE and their ability to do what they have to do, what they're supposed to do according to federal law. And so you're on this app and you get a buzz, and you look at your phone and you say, oh boy, ICE is within 5 miles. And you take cover, whatever you do. So as I was jokingly suggesting that it would be a shame if people downloaded this app and started reporting ICE all over the place, because, if there's a warning that ICE is everywhere, then it's basically null and void. There's nothing productive that can come from that. If everything is a warning, then nothing is a warning, and that would render this app useless. That's apparently what's happening, and it has entertained me to no end. So might talk a little bit more about this on the other side of the break, but I've got to take a time out here, my friends. We have reached the end of the first segment. Sit tight. You're listening here to Conservative, Not Bitter Talk. I am your host, the one and only Todd Huff. Back here in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. Just a little bit more to wrap up what I was talking about at the end of the last hour. Hotair.com. Continuing in what I was reading, and like many of my conservative friends, I thought that CNN's reporting did not cross the line. It was news that the anti-ICE activists were helping criminals evade law enforcement, but I agreed that the tone of the reporting suggested that this was just normal in the way that mostly peaceful riots are. So basically, a funny thing happened. You go down in this article, it says this, but a funny thing happened, one that I doubt that CNN or others anticipated, well, unless you're this talk show host, but nonetheless, it said that something happened that most people didn't anticipate after the virtual advertisement CNN did for the app. Pro-ICE activists found a way to use the crowdfunding app to clear their neighborhoods and various locations elsewhere of illegal aliens. They started reporting ICE activity at the sort of places where illegal aliens like to hang out. So, here's details of the app. It will keep a 5-mile radius of you clear of illegals. Always enter. Oh, this is someone's instructions based upon the rules of the app. They tweeted this online. So it will keep a 5-mile radius of you clear of illegals, is what it says. Always enter the addresses of any Home Depots, Lowe's, or other building supply stores. This is someone what they tweeted on, X, not Twitter anymore, but said to enter the addresses of Mexican restaurants, plumbing and electrical contractors, addresses of all major shopping areas, sit back, drink some ice tea in quotations, and watch the fun. But people have been having apparently some fun with this, breaking the app, because again, the app is designed to, while not to technically interfere with a particular arrest where someone is putting themselves between ICE and physically assaulting an officer and interfering directly with the role of ICE on the streets. It is warning people in advance that ICE is coming. But again, is the warning really helpful if every place around the country is basically indicating a warning? So that's what people have done. This is, by the way, this is a lesson. This is a lesson in just how free markets work. And I know that this is not necessarily directly related to income and then a business trying to adjust to the dynamics of the marketplace. But it is a similar sort of thing. You've got a product that's been delivered that's being used in a particular way, in this case to avoid detection, to allow people who are here illegally to avoid detection by ICE. And so the market responded and said, we don't like what you're doing. If your app, if by putting out these reports, if that is not a violation of ICE doing its job, then neither is what we do in violating the terms of your app, because we believe in the enforcement of law. And that's what people have been doing. And it's quite entertaining, especially since I jokingly hinted at it a couple days ago. Friends, are you tired of spending your hard-earned dollars at businesses that then turn around and support leftist causes? Maybe even apps, maybe even leftist apps like we're talking about here today, allowing illegal aliens to avoid, the enforcement of law that prohibits their being in this country. Friends, this is exactly the sort of reason we created Freedom Marketplace. It's a free searchable directory where you can find businesses that share your conservative principles, conservative values, businesses that have vowed not to support leftist candidates or causes or even crazy little apps like this. There's no login required, no strings attached, just good, patriotic businesses that are pushing in the same direction you are pushing as well. Check it out today. freedommarketplace.net. That's freedommarketplace.net, my friends. Liberty and business for all. We are on the eve of July 4th. We're on the eve of July 4th, and I always try, we have certain days of the year that we kind of set aside time to do some special things with. That I like to talk about the true story of Thanksgiving on the day before Thanksgiving. That is an honor. It's multiple things. It's continuing to tell the story, some of the stories and the lessons that we can learn from something like the development of the holiday of Thanksgiving. It's also a way for me to honor who originally told the story, the late, great Rush Limbaugh. And I do that in his absence the best that I can to keep the tradition alive. It's one of the best stories that I like to tell on this program. We do something on Christmas or around Christmas time, Christmas Eve, or probably a day or two before, because we're probably not producing a new show on Christmas Eve. But we talk about Christmas, and we talk about the coming of the Savior, of Jesus, and what that means for humanity, what that means even for people who politically disagree. I've said on the program before, if you disagree with me on everything besides this one thing, that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of the living God, who came and lived a sinless life, and died on the cross as a penalty for your sins, was raised from the dead, and promised to go and prepare a place for us, that one day we will be with him eternally forever. If you believe that one thing and disagree with everything else that I say, then it's worth it to me, my friends. It's worth it. Now, I'm not discounting all the other things. I'm simply saying nothing is more important than that, and that's why we talk about that both on the eve of Christmas and typically on Good Friday as well. Talk about the story of Easter, the resurrection, what that means for all of humanity, not just Americans, not just conservatives, not just any group of people, for all of us. For anyone who calls upon the name of the Lord will be saved. And there's another holiday that I like to do this with as well, and that's Independence Day, July 4th. And when I think about this, it is amazing to me. I've shared a little bit about this in recent days, but it is amazing to me. I grew up in the 80s. I went to a small town elementary school, and I remember going out and raising the flag on the flagpole. I've shared this with you. I remember they taught us how to fold the flag. I don't think that happens anymore. I think the flags just fly all the time, but we used to take them. I remember we used to put them up in the morning, and I don't remember so much taking them down. I don't know if an adult did that, a groundskeeper, someone else. I don't know. Maybe we did, and I just don't remember it. But I remember this as a kindergartner, first, second grader out there lowering or raising the flag and all that sort of stuff. And I had a great respect for this because they taught us that. I was still at the end of, I guess, the end of the generation that still learned the things about America that were good. Of course, we didn't live in a bubble. We didn't tell ourselves America was perfect, which is what people today believe. They believe if you don't think that America is wicked and evil, then you don't know the full story. Friends, you can accept that America has done many, many good things, that it helped to usher in some incredible times, some prosperity unlike the world has ever known before. Prosperity delivered to people who had typically been living in poverty, under the heavy hand of some tyrant, someone who's controlling the economy and so forth. When countries around the world followed the example of the United States and embraced free markets and embraced some of these principles that we have at the foundation of our country here, great things happened. Great things happened. We are better off in this country. And listen, I'm going to say, regardless of what your personal circumstances are, I'm not being insensitive to those. I'm not saying they don't matter. I'm not saying they're not tough. I'm simply saying we have the opportunity that the vast majority of the world just simply didn't have. We're not living. They want you to believe that Trump is a tyrant and a dictator. Give me a break. This is not serious. This is absolutely not serious. This nation is a engine of economic activity, which is not the full measure of everything, but it's also a place where we are free to explore and to develop our own ideas and beliefs about things that are critically important. The most important thing is about how we view our God, whether or not we believe he exists, what we're going to do about that, so on and so forth. Got to take a break. I'm up against the clock here. I'll continue on the other side of the break. My friends, sit tight. Back in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. Final segment of this, the final segment of the week, actually, because tomorrow we're off with the 4th of July. Mike Lindell and My Pillow, the employees there, the team there, wants to say thank you. Thank you to you in this audience who have purchased their products, purchased their pillows, purchased their slippers, purchased their sheets, their towels, whatever. My friends, they want to say thank you. And they also want you to know that they are offering a deal on their Percale bed sheets. You can get a set of these for as low as $24.98. They're breathable. They have a cool and a crisp feel. They have deep pockets that fit over any mattress. Look great, feel great, and for a limited time, when you order $100 or more of any products at MyPillow.com, you're going to also receive from MyPillow $100 in free digital gifts. Go to MyPillow.com, use promo code Todd to receive the MyPillow Percale bed sheets for as low as $24.98. You'll get discounts on other products and so forth as well. MyPillow.com, promo code Todd. All right, my friends, I'm talking here about the 4th of July. I'm talking about the greatness of this country. I like to think about this. This nation was founded by a group of individuals who had had enough. In fact, if you read the Declaration of Independence, there are a list of grievances. This is what it is. Basically, a list of examples of reasons as to why we've reached the point of no return. The founders have basically said, this is how you've treated us. We've tried everything in our power to avoid going to this particular stage where we're going to take up arms and fight for our independence. There were 27, in fact, grievances listed in the Declaration of Independence that were against the King of England, King George III. And so they were listed as sorts of justification. And I love this document. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary, right? They basically have said, we have exhausted our ability to work alongside you. This didn't just happen yesterday. You have been heavy-handed towards us. You have not been fair to us. Taxation without representation. You've just been abusive. You've not concerned yourselves about the way that we've lived. I think, living in 21st century America, it is hard to even wrap our heads around. I talk about this a little bit in the story of Thanksgiving. When the Pilgrims landed, there was nothing. There weren't highways and byways. There weren't grocery stores and chains of stores that you could get other products, and there weren't houses. There wasn't anything. They were met with a cold and brutal winter. In the case of the Pilgrims, approximately half of them died that first winter in Massachusetts. The going wasn't easy. The people that came here took great risks, especially early on, and they were being they were being prevented from, in some cases, being able to survive by the heavy hand of this government. It wasn't just like, oh, it's an inconvenience. Yesterday, I tried to get my real ID. I haven't gotten that yet. Son and I are going to fly somewhere here in a week or so. But anyway, I need a real ID, and it was an inconvenience. I knew when I walked in there, I got a 50% chance of getting this thing. And it turns out I was right, except for I had a 100% chance that I wasn't going to get it. Something silly. The stars didn't align for this stupid thing. But it wasn't even just like, that's a minor inconvenience. Yeah, that's silly. It's the girl that helped me there was fantastic, by the way. Not her fault, but it defies common sense. Those things are annoyances and inconveniences. What the colonists were dealing with, it could mean life and death. It could mean prosperity. It could mean a tough winter. It was tough things that the king was doing to them, impacting their lives in mighty ways. And the founders, they signed, man, I love the last line of the Declaration. I love the last line of the Declaration of Independence. The founders took the time. They took the time to write these words, which I think are some of the most inspiring words that you'll find in an earthly document. It says this: we mutually pledge to one another our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. And my friends, they meant it. They meant it. Many of the folks who signed their names to this document the 56 signers, they lost a lot. They lost family members. Some of them lost homes and properties. Some of them lost their entire fortunes. They all paid a price. And I've said on this program before, for this country to really have a version of, if you want to think about it like this, a second revolution, and I don't mean a call to arms. I just mean for us to tap back in to these ideas and in a new way, these ideas that the founders laid forth, that we're citizens, not subjects, that we're created in the image of God, that our rights come from our Creator, not from our government, that we are free, that the government needs to be as small as possible. We have to have this same mentality where we're willing to make a similar pledge. I got to go. Happy 4th, SDG.